While perhaps
Mm-hmm.
AI avatar can do really good at attracting and bringing the person through and running your YouTube channel for you, it is never going to convey to somebody that's going to invest $20,000 to work with you or $100,000. That person is going to need a one-on-one conversation. And while you might be able to fake it through AI, when you get on a one-on-one sales conversation, you're going to either show them exactly that you are exactly the person that can help them, or you're just going to completely fall flat and they're going to realize that all of this has just been AI.
Welcome to the How Leaders Think podcast, a show that transforms you by renewing your mind and giving you new ways to think. I'm your host, Kenny Lange, and with me today is the Esther Stewart. She is the founder of CottnOwl Agency. I almost said Cotton Eye Joe, but I stopped myself. I just let it continue in my head. Maybe that should be a sister company. We'll talk about that later. She is a former Fortune 500 associate turned founder, helping other founders scale and grow their offers. Welcome to the show, Esther.
Thank you, Kenny, for having me on. I'm very excited to be here.
I am too. This is going to be a blast, and I love my agency people marketing. So that was my first company. So sometimes it's fun to talk about it and then be reminded why I got out of that business. But tell me today, Esther, what is on your mind?
What is on my mind? What do we want to talk about? Systems? Do we want to talk about marketing? We can go any direction, but if we want to nail one specific thing, what's on my mind is marketing, honestly, for online marketing. Let's talk about that for just a second, because I'm on a soapbox right now let's talk about that just for a second. There's so much misinformation online around marketing, right? And you said you stepped out of the space, and maybe what I'm about to speak to is why you left. But there is so much information around high ticket client acquisition that is just so incorrect online right now. It's very noisy. Yeah. We have a lot of founders that have amazing offers and amazing services, and they're trying all these different strategies and nothing's working because they're trying to put it into a cookie cutter system that they've been pulled on as the one thing that's magically going to get them all these clients, right? And it's not their fault. It's just that this is what they were told. And so it makes sense when you're being pitched to and you're being sold on. And then they have spent, months, years, hired the team, done all the things. And so now we're seeing a reversion back from what I'm seeing. I'm curious but we're now seeing a reversion from all of these business founders through the years who've done all the things. And now they're just burnt out and they're overwhelmed. They still have successful businesses, but now it's, I have done so many different strategies and none of them have really moved the needle. So they're scaling back what they're doing and they're actually scaling back to make more. So that's what's on my mind right now, but I'm curious people are seeing.
Yeah, I think that's probably been something that's always been present is I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this one. I would refer to it as random acts of growth or random acts of marketing. Yeah. And I think that there's a fallacy, and this applies to MySpace too, not like Tom, who created MySpace, the online social media platform with their top 8, but the coaching and leadership development space that I occupy now is there's this belief that everyone else knows the secret and I don't, and everything applies to me right now.
Yes.
Every strategy, every tactic applies to my industry, my stage of growth, my unique values, my unique offerings. It all applies. And when you try to apply everything right now, you can end up with too many chefs or whatever it is. Ultimately, I think it leads to confusion, and I think it leads to a loss of identity. Yeah. Because now I'm trying to be so-and-so. Now does so-and-so, like for me, I follow a lot of Alex Hormozi's marketing and sales advice and offer making, and I think there's a lot of wisdom there. I mean, clearly it's working for him. He's building an empire. Yeah. But I don't need to be Alex Hormozi. I'm not jacked enough. But and I've trimmed down my beard. Yeah. I'm working on it. Okay. Maybe in the next 10, 15 years I can get there. But and this is one reason why I started How Leaders Think, is because I was tired of the guruism that pervades the internet of, well, I have the secret and this is the thing and this is the key. And if you just follow me, you too could buy a Lamborghini and a giraffe. Shut the hell up. You may have found something that worked for you, but own that. Don't think you found the universal secrets of all marketing. So I'm 100% with you. And this is also a soapbox for me if you can't tell. But I do think we should learn how successful people think, such as yourself, and go, what could I take from an Alex Hermosi, from an Esther Stewart, and go, how are they seeing the world? And how might that apply to me right now?
Yeah.
And then I think we start to get some nuggets. But ultimately, if I had to push people any direction, it's why don't you sit in silence for a little bit and think your own thoughts and bet on yourself. You already did once. If you're a founder,
Yeah.
why not continue doing that?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I agree.
So, with the current thinking, the prevailing wisdom, I'm curious, do you think maybe the reasons I'm seeing may not be the reasons you're seeing? I think we clearly see a what. I have my own assumptions about why that I just shared. Do you share those? Do you have a different understanding with the founders you're talking to about why they're so drawn to this method, this approach to marketing and growing their business?
Yeah. So, and I've even done this myself. I think we all have. And you really, I think you addressed it. We see so many ads. So when you are a new founder or you're an established founder, or maybe you've only built your business through referrals, and then you go on social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Meta, and you're scrolling and you're seeing like an Alex Ramosi or somebody of that caliber, that there's many variations of him, but you see that. And so you think, oh, I am totally failing because I'm not scaling. I'm not hiring. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still running the business myself. I don't have a team that replaces me. And so all of that social media, whether you're aware of it or not, it slowly just starts to drip into your subconscious. And the more you're on those social media platforms and get retargeted with those ads, the more, like you said, you start to feel like you're behind and you're missing something. And so now you think that this person has the missing key and you step in and you try all these different strategies. So I do see that 100%. I see that as a big issue. I say it as an issue because of this, because the founders that I work with have believed that they're doing something wrong. And so now they've invested in all these different programs. And the program itself will give them, you can learn something from every program. I'm never going to dismiss somebody's offer or service. But there's, like you said, it's cookie cutter. And so they're now trying to take what they do really well and wedge it into that. So the clients that I work with, and as by extension, probably the same for yours, what we are focusing on is, what do you do exceptionally well naturally inside of your business? And perhaps, and this is one thing I'm a big advocate of, even in my own business, because I've done all of the where you hire and you bring in the big teams and you do all the things. And I'm going to tell you, it's exhausting. And so while I can say I've done it, I then undid it. And I think that we can't tell somebody, you have to go through the things to learn through them. So I'm not going to tell a founder, hey, don't do what all the big names are telling you to do. But what I can tell you is, what is your goal for your business? And is this a goal? Do you really want to be the next person? Do you really want to have this exhausting social media strategy where you have this big team and you're doing all sorts of content and you have a million? I just saw an ad recently for somebody and they were talking about they spend millions of dollars in ad spend. So is that really what you want? Because that's a missing piece. They see the success, but they don't realize what really is involved in that success. So I would, yeah. So I would say that's but I believe that for the many of the founders, especially the ones that I work with, they're realizing that. And so we're going back to more simple systems. We're still advertising. We're still marketing. We're still doing referrals. We're not saying we're not going to run the business, but we're stepping back in how we're running the business and we're building it around what actually makes sense for us inside of what the gurus are doing successfully. Because like you said, Alex Hormozi is very successful for a reason, but his strategy is definitely not for every single person. And one thing too, with his strategies, you have to be really, and you already said this, you have to be careful. Is he actually, if he's sharing a reel, for example, and this made me laugh a couple months ago, he shared this reel with a recommendation for what to do in a sales event. And that will work if you're selling a low ticket offer. But if you're selling a high ticket offer, that would be the worst thing you could possibly do in your business. So again, it's taking what they're telling you, but then knowing does it make sense for your business? If you do this, this is really going to help move your business forward, or are you now going to set your business back? So it's just all those nuances within what's working and then piecing that out and then finding, okay, what actually works for me, which is not necessarily easy, but I do see that more and more founders are leaning into that, which really excites me because now we can actually build businesses that maybe we're not at $100 million a year in revenue. That's okay. Maybe we don't have a big team that's running for us behind the scenes. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that you use the word nuance. I've been using that a lot more
Yeah.
lately, not because I'm trying to sound smart. Lord knows I don't. But I use it because there are these little subtle shifts that people don't pay attention to, but make all the
Yeah.
difference. And one that I think you're hitting on, and I'd love for you to draw a distinction because I do think this makes a big difference that I don't hear enough people talking about in terms of like how or knowing when to apply a certain strategy is you've talked about high ticket offers.
Yeah.
And if you could just for anybody who might be unfamiliar about well, what does it mean a high ticket, low ticket? They're like, where's the medium ticket?
Yeah.
And that's where you lose. But could you break down those different levels and maybe how people could start to figure out where they fit in those categories so they can start thinking and finding the strategies that work for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So low ticket. Low ticket can be paid, it can be free. So when I think about low ticket, it's a way to build your email list and possibly get sales depending on what your offer is. The thing with low ticket is you really should always upsell. It should only upsell into a higher priced offer or service. So if you're
Hmm.
like a wealth management advisor or you are a CPA or an accountant or you have a really successful coaching or consulting business and you already have a service or an offer that you offer and your service is anywhere from $5,000 up to $250,000, depending on the caliber of the client that you're working with and how you're structuring, whether
Hmm.
it's fees, whether it's a retainer, whether it's compensation, direct payments. But what you want to start with is if you have a low ticket offer and you want to make sure that it's an entry point for your ideal client into the ultimate service or offer that you want them to enroll with. So for a low
Hmm.
ticket offer, that can be a webinar. That is the most successful strategy that I'm currently seeing for the level of revenue that I'm speaking about. So $5,000 or
Hmm.
higher, if that's your service or offer price, having a
Hmm.
webinar. And once you have the webinar, once you've done the webinar, and this people don't want to hear this, but it's very true. Once you've run the webinar, maybe 3 or 4 times, then you could move it from a free webinar into a paid webinar. And now we have a low ticket offer, right? So now we've moved
Right.
from lead generation, still lead generation, but we moved from a free lead magnet into something
Hmm.
that you're getting slightly compensated for. There is a strategy and a
Right.
purpose to that when you're in the online
Hmm.
world is the whole goal of that is to raise awareness that you offer a webinar and then now you put a price on it. And so now, but in theory, if somebody is willing to pull out their credit card and pay $27 to be in the room for a webinar, then in
Hmm.
theory, they are in a mindset to invest at the next level. So that is how I define low ticket. And then that's what I mean by high ticket offer or service. Now, mid ticket, to your
Gotcha.
point, I'm not against those. Where I typically see somebody having a mid ticket offer is if they're a coach or a consultant and they have this
Hmm.
premium service that they provide,
Hmm.
but it's not accessible to every single person, right? And so that's where you would see that
Yeah.
expert, that individual, and they'd have a course, right? Maybe you take what you do in
Yeah.
a one-to-one, or maybe something that you do even in like a group program in this instance, and you turn it into, okay,
Hmm.
you can come in, but you only get maybe 4 calls with me, period, but you get lifetime access to the course, right? There's a lot of different ways you can get creative with that,
Yeah.
but it doesn't apply to every single industry. So it depends on what your
Right.
industry is, who your client is, what makes sense. But that's how I define low ticket
Hmm.
or something that's free up to high ticket offers or services. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. So probably something free to maybe even $50
Yeah.
would qualify in that low ticket, like the webinar or something else. Or
Yeah.
hey, I've got this set of templates
Mm-hmm.
that you could buy, and it's $47 or whatever.
Yeah.
But the goal being that you started I've always heard start with the big offer, like the big thing that you're trying to do where you help the most,
Yeah.
all of those things. And that usually is 5,000 plus,
Yeah.
whether that's one time recurring, what have you. But then you work your way down. I think things have really improved for me when I started working on, some people may call that a service ladder, your ascension ladder.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of brandable names about it. If you want to look, a Hermosi or even Russell Brunson,
Mm-hmm.
who and taught Hermosi. But and I have their books because I was like, hey, let me see what's going on. Maybe
Yeah.
there's a way to do this. But you're right. When people are willing to spend 30, 40, $50, they may be willing to spend $200, $300 on the next step because they're like, if it paid off, they
Mm-hmm.
get a little taste. It's a lot like building relationships. I know
Yeah.
that's been overplayed, but it's a little, you got to go on a first date before you propose marriage. Otherwise, you're Dharma and Greg, and then maybe you end up with a sitcom. And I'm dating myself by making a Dharma and Greg reference. I just lost everybody below the age of 30. But the idea being that there are things that increase in how they help. They might be that course. And the mid ticket is never meant, in my experience, it's never meant to be the end all. Now, some people may stop their journey with you there, but that's really meant to be a bridge from, you got this low cost thing, this low ticket item, to give you a taste of what it's like to work with me. It's more about, am I selling snake oil or am I selling something good? Could you
Yeah.
trust further up the line? And if you can, then let's step into this mid ticket, this course, cohort, whatever program. And then if that's good, then maybe we work one-on-one. For me, it's mostly been about like, how much time do they get with me?
Mhm.
Or is it exclusive versus a group setting, right? Is it a public workshop versus I'm just customizing something for you and your company? That's where those sizes start to change. But I am curious because I'm finding success with this and simplifying, like you said, you're finding founders are walking back from, I've got 37 offers. And you're like, WTF, man? Like, I don't know what to buy.
Yeah.
But to really have this is big ticket, mid ticket, low ticket, and maybe a free lead magnet experience
Yeah.
or something like that. Are you finding more founders simplifying their ladder, their stack, their offering set to have something that occupies each of those rungs on the ladder? Does it need to be more diversified the lower you are? Talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So I'm not seeing any of the clients that I'm working with coming in and saying, hey, I want to take all these different offers I have and consolidate them. What I am seeing are founders who have all these different offers and have tried to run ads or have tried to sell all of them organically. And it's creating
Mm,
a channel that's completely confusing and overwhelming for their clients because now their client has no idea where do they fit into this? Does this make sense? And when you're running all these different ads, and I'm not against that, but when you're running all these different ads, it can get really confusing for your ideal client. But again, the reason that I see a lot of founders trying that is because that's what the
mhm.
bigger names do. But what they don't see is the behind the scenes of millions of dollars in ad spend, segmentation, the people that are running all these different ads for all these different offers, whether it's low ticket, mid ticket, free, high ticket, book a call, they've proven every single funnel before they added on another one. So what I see for the clients that come to work with me is they'll have all these different offers. But what I do, and it sounds like that's what you've done, is not really say, hey, I don't want you to sell these offers. But what I come in and look at is, okay, what's the offer, one that sells the best, that gets the best results for your clients? And then once we define what that is, we look at the price point because that is typically the highest ticket offer that they offer, that the highest ticket service or the level of access that they get. So then from there, it's okay, let's focus on setting in place a funnel, a system, a client acquisition strategy specifically for that offer. And then two, have a one-on-one conversation with you. Because
Mm.
back to what you said, which I absolutely agree with, relationships. My wheelhouse before I stepped into online marketing was Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch. We're talking excessive fees, billion-dollar families, ultra high net worth families, celebrities.
Mhm.
They are not coming in because they're coming in for the relationship. There are so many financial advisors that they could choose from. So that even in that industry, there's no way to differentiate yourself. The only way you differentiate yourself is through the relationship, right? So it's a totally different dynamic. But it was really fun because I got to learn at that level, right? And that was the level that I sold
Mhm.
at. That was the level that I built marketing strategies around. So the relationship at the end of the day, which is why back to where I was going with this, the first thing that we look at is their offer. What is the one that gets the best results?
Mhm.
And then setting up the system, the funnel, the strategy, whether that's with organic or paid, it doesn't matter. So that the next step inevitably is to book a one-on-one call with them. Then now they can have a conversation, build a relationship, see if the person on the other side of the camera is actually a good fit for their business. Because one
Mhm.
thing that I'm really careful of in my business, and I know you are as well, is protecting the people that I want to make sure it's the best fit for the person coming in. And I want to make sure that they're not
Yeah.
investing in something that they don't need, but I also want to make sure that I'm not working with clients that are not aligned with my values, what we can actually do, that maybe they're a step below where they should be before they can work with me. But what it allows you to do is build a relationship, have a one-on-one conversation, see where they are. And then in this labyrinth of all these offers you have, now you can customize based on what you discover in that conversation. And I
Mm-hmm.
have this service, I have this offer. I think based on what you've told me, like, this would actually be the best offer for you. Because there are going to be, I mean, I'm sure you have the same where you get on a one-on-one conversation and they're a lovely individual, but they just don't, it doesn't make sense for them to come into your highest ticket offer for whatever reason. Sometimes they just
Yeah.
afford it. So at that
Yep.
point, it's not like you're not losing a sale if it's a right fit, but now you can downsell them. So you can still have all these offers, but I think that answered your question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can have them, and in some cases, I would say you might want to combine them. Some may work better together than others. You're like, hey, I have these component parts. I think that's where what you're doing with them is running them through a diagnostic of their own. Hey, what's selling? What sells most often? What sells the most? What's reoccurring versus people bought once and don't seem to come back? And what are people not buying? Is it the offer? Is it the communication about it? Because half the time, just trying to get the positioning, even around the best offer, is the difference between selling and not selling.
Yeah.
Because if people don't understand what they're buying, they're not willing to part with their money.
Yeah.
And that may sound crass and transactional. I don't mean for it to be, but I mean, that's how we as entrepreneurs gauge. That's our feedback loop.
Yeah.
If people aren't willing to pay, then there is no value because we got to exchange value.
Yes.
Right? Is at the end of the day, a business is a collection of systems engineered to deliver value in exchange for value.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now, how well you talk about the value you create directly determines how much value you get in return.
Yes.
And a lot of times that is and can be the relationship building aspect. There's some people who are great at selling one-to-one. Some people are great at selling one-to-many. I think you got to be honest and realistic about your skill set there. Yeah. I'm much better at one-to-one selling. I can speak, but I don't know that I do a great job selling in that environment until I get one-on-one with somebody. The other thing that came to mind that I was taught and get reminded of is taking you're a doctor, right? You go in and you can say, I got all these problems and things like that. But the doctor doesn't just go, oh, you say this hurts? Okay, well, here's meds. Now get out of my face. I mean, if they do that, I think that they get punished. Yeah. But if you go in and you say, I've got this list of symptoms and all these things, and goes, interesting. Well, let me ask you a few more questions, and keeps digging in with more of a diagnostic lens. And they go, oh, okay, so you need to go see this specialist, take this medicine for this period of time, and then you're going to feel better instead of throwing everything at it. And that, I do think that can apply in a downsell, which I think builds a lot of trust. If you're like, hey, you don't need this big ticket, I think you need this, because then they're like, oh, you're really acting more as a concierge of fit, like establishing fit, as opposed to like, how big could I sell them?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you want them to get whatever the transformation is that your product or service delivers, right? I had a conversation recently with somebody who they had seen me speak, but they wanted me to come in and do a training with their team. They said, hey, we've already got this day set aside. It's usually like annual strategic planning. And they say, well, we would love for you to come and teach on this aspect of something, maybe something they heard me talk about, but personalize it. Yeah. That's a great use of time. And I started asking them questions, and it became clear to me. I was like, you're wanting a pretty big change, and I'm happy to charge you to come in for 90 minutes and do a session. It'll be fun. We'll have a great time. We'll learn. You'll walk away. I said, my concern would be that nothing actually changes after that, because in my experience, 90 minutes is not long enough for a team to really push forward. And especially given what you've already tried, I was like, I think you need something that drips out a little longer. Now, in that case, it felt maybe more like an upsell. Wasn't my intention. But I knew that if the result they're looking for is X and I sell them Y, then I've done them and myself a disservice.
Yeah. Yeah. So that ties back even to the webinar mentality. So, for example, there's a whole strategy around webinars and challenges as a client acquisition strategy. And I'm sure you've been in many webinars. You obviously deliver many webinars. And I'm sharing this because I think a lot of the founders don't fully understand this, because even myself, I didn't discover this until a year ago. Have you ever gone into somebody's webinar and you got nothing from it? You've spent 60 minutes and you've been sold on this amazing thing, and it's like you leave and you're like, this was like 60 minutes and it was a total waste of my time, right? So there is a skill set as in how you deliver the webinar, but inside of that skill set, and this is where it's very nuanced, but, and you already know this, but inside of that webinar, you want to take them on a journey of ups and downs where you're selling them and you're telling a story and you're moving them to want to take the next step. But just like you said, inside of that webinar, if you were to tell somebody, hey, this is what you're going to do, and I'm going to give you 3 things to do right now, but you already know that those 3 things, like they're not going to, that's just a beginning step. And if they just set those 3 in place, it's not enough to continue the story. This is why so many webinars have tried the whole basis of, well, I'm going to go in and not actually teach you anything, but they never got the first part right. The reality is the webinar is really to show you the what, not the how. And so it has to be done strategically so that somebody doesn't feel like they've had a complete waste of 60 minutes of their life where they haven't learned anything. Right. But the whole purpose of the webinar should be showing somebody the what, not the how, which is exactly what you just pinpointed, which is I can come in and deliver a 90-minute webinar and I can teach them what they need to do, but not how to do it. And so now it's a complete disservice to them, which is why you use a webinar and a challenge to upsell into something. So I think that's great. And we're here to upsell. We're here to downsell. We're here to help our client however makes the best sense inside of what we deliver. And so if that's an upsell, that's truly going to get them the result that they're on that one-on-one with you to learn how to do, then it's your responsibility as a business owner to upsell them, right? So a lot of founders are really uncomfortable with that because they're like, oh, I'm upselling. Oh, this feels like I'm trying to get pushy. It's only pushy if you're selling them something that you know they don't need. Right? If you're selling them something that you know they don't need, yes. And that's where you hear that salesy, people don't want to be salesy. Well, yes, because you're in a dynamic where you're trying to convince somebody that they need something. Whereas when you're in the persuasion, you're guiding somebody on a journey from, hey, we're having this conversation. And now, like you told me, this is what you want. Let's just shift it. And so now you just go along with them on a journey to move them from realizing, yes, that we do need this service and they want to work with you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I found it always gets salesy, including for myself. If you sell from your need for cash instead of their need for help, it's always going to come across in that way you don't want. But if your heart, your mentality, your mind is genuinely, hey, I'm seeing this. I think this would help you. If you would like my help in this goal, and again, and keep anchoring back to goals. If their goal is to reach this place and you have the means and expertise or products to help them do that, then it's good for you to offer that. You would be detrimental for you to not offer that and say, hey, I have something that could help you. Otherwise you're being quiet. It's like seeing someone who's about to like trip over a sidewalk and you're like, hey, I could point that out, but you know what? I don't want to be too pushy and tell them how to live their life. And then you watch them face plant and they get up and they got a bloody nose. Like, do you really feel good about yourself? Were you really that helpful? Or could you have pointed something out? Maybe they thought you were being a little bossy, but guess what? They didn't get a bloody nose. They stepped up on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
That was a pretty graphic analogy I just used. I like it. It will stick with you.
Yes.
I'll come up with a more peaceful one after we're done recording for some reason. But I think that's one thing that we can help people with is setting the boundaries, setting the expectations, saying that we help them in these ways. And then something I picked up from the book, The Prosperous Coach, which I think really applies to anybody who's selling services or is in that business of persuasion, is making sure, being very clear on the what you've seen, right? Because people need to see themselves in the story you're telling, like on the webinar.
Yeah.
And then it's an invitation at the end of, would you like some help with that?
Yeah.
And then it's on them. They have free will. They can say no. And if you go with Chris Voss and his whole tactical empathy approach is people want to feel safe to say no. So put it in that frame. Would it be a bad idea for us to work together? Are you looking for help with this right now? Or are you good? And let them say, and then respect their wishes and move along. And because you honestly probably don't want a client that you have to oversell.
No.
If you have to convince them to work with you, that's convincing someone to date you and stay with you. Like it's going to be weird. Whereas a mentor of mine says, it's going to feel like taking a shower with your socks on. Something doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be a little odd.
Yeah.
Now, something with regard to webinars and maybe even all of marketing, obviously we cannot get away from, and I don't say this necessarily tongue in cheek or sarcastically, although my tone of voice is very good at communicating this way, is influence on marketing. And I don't think it's just on the marketing. I think it's on the buying, because more and more of these software platforms, the internet, they're having to engineer things for an AI agent who may actually be the visitor to the web page
Mhm.
or something else. How are you seeing those trends change the tactics, the behaviors, the strategies that are needed for today's founders? Because it's not just, oh, hey, now AI can spit out a bunch of marketing and some of it's really good, but it can help me market faster and or in greater volume, or if you're doing paid ads, like greater
Yeah.
variations on your ads. But now your buyer might actually be making contact via an AI agent or some AI product of some kind first before they ever get to you. And I think that's a big shift. What are you seeing, or what has your thinking been as you're noticing these things?
Yeah. So in high ticket services, yet I haven't seen what you're describing around like an AI bot, because that's another, like, when you're selling at this level of service or offer, you're selling to a human. This person, like, when you're selling at that level, you're selling the service, whether it's an advisory firm, whether it's an accountant, whether it's a coach, whether it's a consultant. On the other side of that higher priced service is a component that is one-on-one. So we haven't yet seen where that the person that is looking for that type of service is utilizing AI in communicating for them. However, where I am seeing a shift, which goes back into just having a strategy that's aligned with what you want to have in your business and tied around your offer and your positioning, but that makes sense to you and not trying to do the Alex Hormozy thing. What I am seeing though is in the past, somebody would see an ad and they would click on the ad and then maybe they go and Google you. And people are still Googling, but where they're not Googling, now they're going into AI. So now they're going into ChatGPT or Claude or all the Gemini, and they're putting the name of your business and they're looking to see what comes up. And it's the quickest way for them to find out, because the bots will crawl and find, is there any pricing available anywhere on your website? Because one thing is, what's the investment? What am I going to have to pay if I work with this person? What is their experience? And so that's what they're looking for. How long have they been in business? So in terms of AI for that, I am seeing it heavily for that. And that's also shifted the
Gotcha.
dynamic even in advertising. So even in the last year, it used to be you would turn the ad on and somebody would come through and they'd book a call with you and you'd have a conversation and they would say yes. They still do, but it's on a slight delay right now, because what happens is they see the ad and they come through the funnel, and whether it's a webinar or it's a one to book a one-on-one, it doesn't matter. And they'll come through and they are very likely not going to book a call right then, because guess what they're going to go? They're going to go look you up on AI.
Research.
Exactly. And I think it's great. I think it's an amazing tool that we have, but it has shifted the timeline and the time frame. So while perhaps that specific offer or business was getting clients within a week, now it's probably extended by 3 or 4. Perfectly fine. Now,
Mhm.
for marketing, for messaging, it can write really good copy. It can write really good messaging. I think that in a couple of months what I'm about to say will be completely irrelevant, but at least for right now, where it's not good is in unique market positioning. It cannot
Mhm.
calculate, because as it's just a bot. It's just pulling from what other humans and other bots have written and made available on the internet. So if you are trying to come in, and this is what we do for our clients, if you're trying to come in with a unique market positioning that differentiates you inside of a sea, you have an offer that's plain vanilla, but you're exceptional at what you do. How do you articulate that inside of your positioning so that somebody wants to work with you when you
Yeah.
one of thousands, just like my industry? I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of marketers, right? So what makes me different than the others? And so this is where that positioning comes in. What I have not seen AI be able to do well yet is that positioning. Because when you're asking it, you're asking, because I keep testing it. If you go in and say, hey, this is what I do, find a unique angle, it can't do that, because it's going to find only what's available online. And if it's available online, it's not unique. So I would argue that it's not at the level there for positioning. And the one place, and others are even saying this as well, so this is not just me, but the one place it's definitely never going to be able to replicate is in the sales conversation. Because what we're
Yeah.
seeing is, and I think like Adley, all the big names are even drawing attention to this, Gary Vee, that right now we don't yet have AI avatars that are able to replace us, but that is coming. And so very soon, and soon by everybody's definition, it could be 2 years, but that's even soon. So let's say it's 2 years in the future, and now everyone, we all have our AI clones, and we can have amazing YouTube content, amazing Instagram reels. But now we have this disconnect in like who's actually able to help, who's not just using AI to create this clone to sound intelligent. And so that's where having those one-on-one conversations where you're selling, getting really good at selling, building the relationship in a one-on-one is going to set you apart. Because while perhaps AI avatar can do really good at attracting and bringing the person through and running your YouTube channel for you, it is never going to convey to somebody that's going to invest $20,000 to work with you or $100,000. That person is going to need a one-on-one conversation. And while you might be able to fake it through AI, when you get on a one-on-one sales conversation, you're going to either show them exactly that you are exactly the person that can help them, or you're just going to completely fall flat and they're going to realize that all of this has just been AI. So that's where I see AI coming in. It's great with messaging. It's great with copy. It's not great with positioning yet. And it is good even with Claude's really good with building website pages. However, it's not great. It can build really professional website pages that look good, but you can still tell that it's been built by Claude, right? So we aren't yet at the point where you could say, hey, I'm using AI and nobody can tell it's AI.
Yeah. Apart from doing, the only part on that I might disagree with is it's not good yet, like in a off the shelf sort of use case. But if you do take the time to do a lot of training and giving it a lot of context, I do think you can customize it. But again, that's a nuance. That's not you can't just grab it off the shelf and use it however you want. I think, and that's where a lot of the AI, what I guess the term now is AI slop, comes from is, and all these generic things that you can tell from a mile away is people do very little in prompt engineering. They give it very little information on to train its knowledge base and memory. Those things are definitely hard. But I also love on the sales side is when you are sitting across from a person, even if it is on a video call, there's no place to hide.
No, none.
Like you can't have AI speak for you right then. Although I don't know, that would be weird. You like have it talk and you're moving your lips. But I don't know. People are probably going to do some very weird and off-putting things. But I think you can't look off of the camera and go line like you're in a television show.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to represent yourself. So those skills still are very valuable. And I would say even more valuable as there's more technology, more AI, things like that can emulate certain human skills. I think honing your own skills, your own human skills, I think are going to receive probably like a 10x value because people will push hard the other way. It's already happening where people are trying to push hard against any sort of inclusion or use of AI in certain situations. And I'm rarely all one direction and not the other. I do think that's where things like nuance, judgment, strategy come into play. It keeps us from that tribal thinking and allows us to make wise and smart choices instead of just following somebody else's herd. But so I love what you're saying, though, is that we need to think through these things and recognize the way the marketplace is shifting, that it was SEO for the last 20 plus years that we all needed to think about. And not that you don't need to be smart about that, but I guess now AEO is becoming the new thing to target, because if you're not showing up in those AI searches, whether directly because somebody went and looked up CottnOwl or because somebody was like, I need an agency that focuses on high ticket, blah, blah, blah. You still want your name to be able to pop up and be found, but the bots are a little different than the ones that Google had been sending out across the internet for the last couple decades. So Esther, I love talking about marketing, communication, sales, all these things, especially with technology involved. So we could probably keep going and do our own Joe Rogan podcast version of this, but we'll save that for a different time. If somebody's listening and they're like, hey, okay, I'm a founder, I'm a leader, or maybe I want to be a founder, and it just feels really noisy out there. And what you're saying resonates. I need to understand an offer. I need to clearly position it. But this feels overwhelming. What's a baby step someone could take in the next 24 hours, spending little to no money, to get started on organizing and aligning their offers?
Organizing their offers specifically. Okay. So, yeah, I'll give you both with AI and without AI. The first is you can, this one is not as fun. I think it's fun, but most people don't find it fun, is where you take your offers. Hopefully, you have them all mapped out inside of a Google document or whatever you use, Word document. And you look at all of your offers and you look where you see commonalities between them. So if you see this offer really isn't that different than this one, this actually maybe we could even add this into this existing offer. This offer, it doesn't really make sense to have it as a standalone. This could be a bonus. So you can start to take your offers and learn how and look at how you can segue them so that perhaps you have, for the person that you mentioned at the beginning of the call who has 20 offers, maybe your goal would be to consolidate those into 10, right? You want to do little baby steps because if you go from 20 offers into 5, that can be overwhelming too. But if you start with a big picture and it's, okay, I have 20 offers, find the ones that you don't enjoy delivering on anymore and either move those, possibly just get rid of those. That's a great strategy as long as you're not breaking your business. I'm really careful with that because sometimes the one thing that in my business, we even did this like last year, the one offer that I didn't enjoy delivering on was the one that everybody wanted it, right? So I'm not saying, so you want to be careful as I say this, that you're not like going to go in and completely destroy your business. But if you have 20 different offers and you're not selling all of them consistently, look at how you can restructure those into 10. And you can do it manually inside of a Google document or a Word document and just piece it together. However, if you want to utilize AI, you can, and Claude I think would probably be the best. I'm tiptoeing between Claude and Gemini. They both have their strengths and their weaknesses. You could take that same Google document and just upload it into AI if you're comfortable with AI now having access to that, and upload it into AI and let AI tell AI. And again, this goes back to what you said. It's all about the prompts, right? So AI cannot create good copy without the right prompts. It cannot. You can't just, it's not going to do anything well. You have to have the right prompts and the right trainings in all those. So with this, you'd have to have the right prompt, which I think in this case would be very simple. It would be, I'm going to upload a PDF that has all of my offers. Inside of these offers, I want you to consolidate and give me 10 offers along with what is the offer, what is the outcome, what is the price point based on what I'm already telling you I'm charging, where could I possibly increase the price if I add these in, and which ones would be great bonuses for these offers as a bonus when somebody says they want to move forward. That could be a great prompt just to get it going. Yeah. But that's what I would do. I think easy baby steps, but don't undo what's working in your business. Just very careful.
Yeah, because you'll get shiny object syndrome. And it's, all right, yeah, I listened to this great podcast. Esther said, burn it all to the ground and start over. And you're like, I didn't say that. Calm down there.
I mean, you might be feeling that. I feel like that about my own business sometimes. And I was like, let's just start all over. But yes, don't do that yet.
Yes. I felt that about my own website. I was a hairdresser, hairstylist. As soon as they style their hair, they're like, okay, I hate it. I'm changing it. Yeah. And I feel the same way about offers and website and all my marketing. I was like, okay, yeah, I worked really hard. All right, now I hate it and I want to change it and I want to do something different. So do avoid the shiny object syndrome. That can be tough. Yeah. If people want to know more about you, more about CottnOwl, not Cotton Eye Joe, a CottnOwl Agency, where do they connect with you? Where do they find out more about you?
Yeah, so they can just go to my website. I'm going to spell it because my auto caption likes to pronounce it as CottnOwl, the toilet paper, and it is not. So it's CottnOwl official.com. So it's cotton, but we remove the last O. So it's CottnOwl. So yes, it is not CottnOwl, the toilet paper. I did not think that out very well when I came up with that name.
Yeah. It's not CottnOwl, CottnOwl, like hoot.
Yes.
So I felt the same way with my agency. I was like, I'm going to make this look badass. Like I'm going to take out all the vowels and it's going to be Phoenix, but it's PHNX. And then for 5 years, I'm explaining this to people on the phone. Yeah. Can you spell your email address? PHNX like, why did I do this to myself? It looks great printed, but it makes my life a living hell. And also you have a podcast.
I do. It's The Shifting Road of Business. It's only on Spotify though.
Only exclusively on Spotify. Exclusive. There it is. Yeah, I'll get exclusive on something at some point. But Esther, this was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun.
Same. Thank you.
Have you back in the future. To all of our listeners, thank you. You spent part of your day, evening, morning, jog, drive, whatever, with me and Esther, and we do not take that for granted. You have many options when choosing podcasts, and we thank you for flying how leaders think. But if you got value out of this conversation or any of the other ones, I encourage you to rate, review, subscribe, smash whatever button you need to on your platform of choice. It helps get conversations like the one Esther and I just had in front of more people just like you who are looking to take their next step in leadership. That's a free and easy way for you to pay it forward. And won't that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside? But until next time, change the way you think, you'll change the way you